All right, I have us at the top of the hour. Hello, everyone. Hello, Community Action. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Denise Harlow. I'm the CEO of the National Community Action Partnership, and we're excited to have CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, join us here today for this really timely and important webinar. So first of all, we are recording today's webinar. You will receive a link to the recording and a copy of the slide deck. It'll also be posted up on the partnership's website. And I think the slide deck may already be posted there. We will also be putting into the chat window links to the toolkit that will be referenced here today, as well as a link to another webinar done by our colleagues here that dive into really a lot of details. One of the reasons we're excited that CFPB is joining us here today is that we know community action agencies for decades have been working with families with low and moderate incomes around tax preparation. We know many of you are VITA sites, and if you're not a VITA site yourself, you're most likely partnering or referring your customers to VITA programs. But we also know many of the families who come into community action agencies, perhaps they're coming in through our shelter programs, perhaps their children are in Head Start. There may be a variety of programs where we have touch points with families. And our families may not always have the need to file tax returns, given low incomes coming into their households. There may be a variety of other reasons why families have opted not to file taxes. There are also another myriad of reasons that we'll touch on today why families may not have received their $1,200 economic impact payment and those $500 payments made for children or dependents. Now, I don't have all the language right, so I probably have already screwed it up even in my introduction about some of the nuances about this program. But the thing I do know is that families need every dollar coming into their households right now and dollars that they're entitled to. In community action, you're going to be that leverage point, as you often are, for families who don't quite know how to go figure out, I thought I was supposed to get this money, I maybe don't have a bank account, I didn't file taxes, I do, but I have no idea where the money is, and am I even qualified? And so today we're joined by Dave Siminski, Senior Policy Analyst from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and several of his colleagues from ICF International who do a ton of training, who understand the details on how to walk through with a customer, helping them access and finding out if they're qualified to receive their economic impact payment that's related to the CARES Act here during the COVID pandemic. So again, thank you for joining us. We do have a chat window and a Q&A window. I just will say from a moderator side, if you can use the chat window, it's a little easier for us to navigate, but we'll respond and keep an eye on the Q&A window as well here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dave, and we look forward to meeting you and your team and hearing more about how we can help our families access economic impact payments.
So thank you, Denise. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you all today. And hopefully we can talk together about and learn more about how to help people, your clients, people in your community to take action in order to receive their economic impact payments, also commonly known as stimulus checks. And they've been referred to as a variety of other things, but they are economic impact payments. And I want to introduce to you, and you'll be hearing from them shortly, my colleagues, Joanna Barrero and JC Craig of ICF. Joanna will be talking about some information regarding doing outreach in your community and connecting with people. And then JC will be walking us through the step-by-step on how to take action depending on the status of the person you're trying to help. I also want to share just on a personal level that I live and work in Seattle. And over the past 20 years, I've worked with CAP agencies like HopeLink and Solid Ground and El Centro and Neighborhood House and Multi-Service Center, and we've always had a great relationship. So I really appreciate the CAP network and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. So this is our standard disclaimer whenever we do a presentation, and basically it says any opinions or views stated by myself or JC or Johanna are our own and may not represent the Bureau's views. And then we do have some inclusion of references to third-party sites or resources, and these references do not necessarily reflect a Bureau endorsement of the third party. Okay, so a little bit about our agenda. First of all, we'll talk about the economic impact basics. I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot of basic information, but we like to start there in case some people are not as familiar as others. We'll also talk about one of the important things that you can do first, which is to ask people whether they've received their payment, and depending on the response, how to help them move forward. We'll share with you some ideas about how to spread the word and how to do some outreach and provide some assistance strategies. Then we're going to, JC will talk about the step-by-step process for helping people get their payment. And then we'll have a link at the end about how to get the guide itself. And then we'll have, I hope, plenty of time for questions and answers. So with that, a little bit about EIP basics. So as many of you probably know, the economic impact payments or stimulus checks are a key provision of the CARES Act, which was passed last spring in order to help reduce the financial burden of COVID-19 on individuals and their families. So as far as we know, as far as we can tell from reporting from the IRS, that over 169 million people have gotten their funds through either direct deposit or paper check, or in some cases, about 4 million people got prepaid cards. But less known, and why we're here today, is to talk about those people who did not get their payment yet. And so that the payments were automatically made or should have been made to people who filed either their 2018 or 2019 tax returns, people on Social Security, folks who are on SSI, and recipients of veterans benefits and railroad retirement benefits. But millions of people haven't yet received their $1,200 stimulus payment, and they have, and this date is really important, they have till October 15th to take steps in order to get their funds this year. They could still get their economic impact payment if they file their 2021 tax return, but we know, and as Denise said, a lot of the folks that we're really concerned about and want to make sure get these payments are folks that really need the money, and they could use it now, and they could have used it a month ago if they could have gotten it. So that's who we're focusing on, and that's why we're here today. So to get your EIP, there are actually two paths. Most of the guide that you'll be hearing more about focuses on mainly on people who are not required to file taxes, as Denise referred to, people who have very low incomes below $12,200 a year for individuals, and they're not required by law to file taxes. And certainly we know a lot of folks that have low incomes do file taxes for other reasons, like claiming the earned income tax credit or other benefits. But there's a lot of people that literally do not file tax returns, and they're not required to. So for those folks, the vast majority of them, what they need to do is to get their payment is to go to the non-filers tool that we'll be talking about on the IRS webpage. Then there's a second group of people that may not have gotten their EIP because they didn't file their tax returns in 2018 or 2019, but they are required to file, required by law to file a return, and they should actually go and file their return now, even if it's late, and then they would also be able to receive their EIP. So what do we know about people who haven't yet filed? Well, we've already talked about the income limits, but we also know from outside research that there are likely a lot of people that are on Medicaid. They may be SNAP recipients or TANF recipients. A lot of outside research shows that those folks are likely to be in the population that have not yet received the payment, and they're very low income. They're likely people that are struggling with homelessness. They may not have an address, a place to receive a check. They may not have internet access. We think there's a lot of people that could be a real challenge. Either they don't have internet access, and you need to have internet access in order to go to the non-filers portal in order to receive your payment, or they may not be technology literate or capable, and so they just need some assistance in order to take the steps that they need to take. And so, a little bit about why they may not have received their payment. I've already named a few reasons, but for a lot of folks, they may literally just not know it's out there. They may be off the grid a little bit in terms of receiving news or information. They may, not understand that this is that the legislation passed included them as eligible recipients. and they may just need a little help, just like a little bit of assistance, a computer to use, a place to get started, help making sure they have all the information they need. They may have even tried to take steps, and they may have received an error message when they, try to put their information into the non-filers portal on the IRS, and they don't know what it means. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And also, two questions I want to address up front so that you know who is eligible to receive payments. According to the CARES Act, you have to be either a U.S. citizen or you have to be a permanent resident with a Social Security number that's valid for work to get the EIP. And then another question we get asked a lot, and so we like to address it up front, is the EIP, pardon me, does not affect people's federal benefits. So, excuse me, and nor is it a public charge for immigration purposes. It is a tax credit. Excuse me for just 1 second. Pardon me, I had to, thank you. I apologize for that. So again, time is of the essence, and we really need to help people take steps before October 15th. So really quickly, some of the things we'll cover about. So first, Joanna will be talking to you in just a minute about the importance of asking people about the EIP. Then we'll talk about finding out ways for people to understand what their status is by using the Get My Payment tool on the IRS website. And then finally, we'll also talk about how to help people file a return using the non-filers tool. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Johanna, who's going to take us through the next step. And Johanna, I'm passing you the ball.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. And I don't think I have the ball yet. Okay, now I do. Great.
There we
go. So thank you so much. And as you can see, and as Dave and Denise mentioned, many of the people who need to claim the EIP may be already receiving services that your organization or those in your network offer already. So you may be in a great position to let clients know they can still get their EIP and what steps they need to take to claim it. Those of you who are working directly with clients can start by asking them if they got their stimulus payment or if they got their economic impact payment, or they can ask if they already received their $1,200. And if the answer is yes, then you can congratulate your clients on receiving their payment. No further action needed. If the answer is no, I'm not sure, I don't know, that's an opportunity to help them find out why. So before I continue, I just wanted to note that throughout this presentation, we will refer to the people that your organization is helping as your clients, and that's for consistency purposes. But we know that this may not be the term that you use or may not describe the relationship between your organization and those that you serve. Okay. All right. So here are some ideas on how to integrate a conversation about the EIP into your existing work and interactions with clients. And the place to start is to think about all the potential connection points with clients. Even with social distance protocols in place, there may be ways in which you and your colleagues are still interacting directly with clients. And some good times to ask clients if they have received their EIP are during one-on-one conversations that can be happening in person or over the phone, or as part of your regular communications via email, text, or regular mail. And this guide includes a half-page flyer in Appendix B that can be used in different communication formats, including emails, text, and social media posts. And we'll show you that in a few minutes. And in addition, we like to point out that the IRS has produced many ready-to-use promotional materials on the EIP in English, in Spanish, and other languages. And we provide a link to those materials on page 5 of the guide. But we point this out because those can be customized with your organization's name and phone number, where people can reach out for support. So in addition to having conversations with clients, any of the EIP-related materials I've mentioned can be printed in-house. They can also be distributed to clients and other community members in food boxes and other mailings and distributions. All right. So whether you or your colleagues are assisting clients in person, over the phone, or virtually, we like to stress that you may want to prepare to walk your clients through the step-by-step process of using the IRS tools, Get My Payment tool, to check on the status of their payment, and if needed, the non-filer tool, if they have to take any additional steps to claim their EIP. And that process is described in great detail starting on page 8 of the guide. And JC will also talk some more about those steps in a few moments. Other ways that the other assistance strategies and ways in which your organization can assist clients with the EIP include what we heard earlier. You want to refer your clients to VITA sites, free tax preparation programs in your community. These VITA programs are key partners in the EIP outreach efforts. They rely on volunteers and may be connected to other pro bono services in your area. And we mention VITA programs because these programs are these programs are better equipped for the most part to address more of the complex questions that are related to your client's tax situation. So while most VITA sites are only open during tax season, some do operate year-round, and we just encourage you on page 6 of the guide to check the IRS website where you can locate a VITA site in your area. If you don't run a program already. So another way to assist clients, as Dave mentioned, is by providing internet access, which is critical to using the IRS tools, and it's a key barrier to a lot of people. And just keep in mind that people who don't have internet access may also have limited experience with technology. So again, be prepared to offer some more one-on-one assistance. And another way is is to help clients open a bank account or shop for a prepaid card so that they can receive direct deposit of their EIP. And on this slide, you can see a link to a CFPB resource that can help clients understand the fees that are more commonly charged by prepaid cards, and that can help them sort of choose the best card for them. And then finally, going back for a minute to internet access, if you are not able to help your clients on site and provide, access to technology or Wi-Fi in your facilities, we encourage you to think about offering Wi-Fi in open space areas like a parking lot. We've seen that done before, and it works well. And you can also, connect with other organizations in your area, find out if they're offering that service already. And then finally, we'd like to ask you to help us spread the word in your community and reach those that have not received the EIP. And as you well know, word of mouth is a powerful outreach strategy. Clients themselves can help spread the word by asking their family members if they got their EIP. They can encourage those family members to check the Get My Payment tool and reach out to you if they need more information. You may also be already working with, organizations that are trusted partners in the community that have an established record of helping economically vulnerable populations, such as homeless services organizations, local 211 services, faith-based and other community-based organizations. that can also influence people to take action to claim the EIP. And then finally, your organization can help raise awareness of the EIP through printed outreach materials like the flyer I mentioned and some of the other materials the IRS has available. And those can be distributed in many different ways, in utility bill inserts. They can be posted in heavy foot traffic locations. And you can always take a look at the guide Appendix B for the half-page flyer, which I'll show in a minute. And that image can also be used in electronic communications like email, text, and social media posts. All right, so let's take a look at the half-page flyer, and this is the front of the flyer. This is the image I was mentioning could be used in printed and other electronic formats. And here is the back side, which has a little bit more information that hopefully addresses some of the more common questions. And on the guide on page 25, we have instructions on how to print this flyer on like double-sided, two flyers per page, so that you can save on printing costs. We understand that that is a cost that organizations are taking on. And I would like to hand it over to JC now to tell us a little bit more about the Get My Payment and Non-Filer tool.
Thanks, Johanna. I think the thing we want to know is once we tell the client and find out for the clients they didn't get their payment, how are we going to help them? So one of the best tools we have to do that is the IRS Get My Payment tool. And it's going to give you, one of 4 different statuses once you put the information in. The important thing to know is if people get the payment status not available response from Get My Payments, they probably need to use the non-filer tool or file a tax return. Get My Payments pretty easy. It takes some basic information. It's mobile friendly. The IRS also has it in a Spanish version, so it's all pretty nice if you can get the people online. One thing we cover in the guide in some depth is people who should be filing a tax return rather than using the non-filer tool when they have the no payment status available response from Get My Payments. So pretty much we're expecting everyone who has less than $99,000 in income and hasn't received a payment and is sitting there at the no payment status available to be able to use the non-filer tool to get their information to the IRS. There's 2 basic non-filer tools. There's a Spanish and an English. They're both, you can complete them both on a mobile device. This is the information people are going to need on the form, whichever non-filer tool they're using. And we have a little more depth of discussion. We also, normally when I do this presentation, I'm talking more details, and we thought like it was more appropriate for this audience to just kind of give the high-level overview, show what's in the tool. We also have a recording we shared that is kind of the in-depth overview of this piece of filling out the non-filer tool. As you see, we've done a lot of screenshots within the tool because we know many of our clients are going to be working with us over the phone or over a Skype or video call. So we just want to be able to help everyone kind of see if you can like look in the guide and see that they're not talking about the same picture I am, then it can help the frontline staff. So lots of screenshots to share. The other the other thing, I think we talked to several providers before we started this project, and what do people want? I'm going to do outreach. They all want to have a way to maybe help a client get through the process and answer their questions. So we tried to make the tool do a good step-by-step for that. When they do get my payment, they might get no payment status available, but they could get one of 3 other responses, which is need more information, a payment has been processed, a payment pending, and not processed. We talk about kind of what these mean in the guide and kind of like the first steps of trying to figure out what to do, because we know the taxpayers told us they have not received a payment. So the need more information status, that basically is a description of the mail bounced, got returned to the IRS undeliverable, or there was a problem with direct deposit. Then the so again, we cover that in depth in the guide, and the next piece is payment status has been processed. That means the IRS has sent a payment, and that payment has not been returned. So so that payment's out there and the taxpayer hasn't got it, and we start the process of following up on that issue, which maybe, you know, putting a trace on it with the IRS or some other way of trying to track that payment down. And finally, we have the pending and not processed. If that's sitting up there for a while, so it should switch after 2 weeks, that usually means there's something more going on with the return, and they're going to pretty much have to contact the IRS to try to straighten those issues out. And we provide some guidance on trying to track that down through the resources that are on irs.gov. So that is what's in the guide in a nutshell, why we tried to make it kind of like step-by-step and user-friendly, and something that a lot of your frontline staff can turn to if they've got a client that's having a problem, and like a really useful tool for them. So with that said, I think we'll open it up for questions. And thank you. And who am I supposed to turn it over to? Denise?
JC, Aaron Wicks here from the partnership. We did have a couple of questions come in
Yes.
through the chat. So I know one has to do with an individual who is 26 years old. They live with their parents. They receive SSI, and they work part-time.
Okay.
This individual files her taxes, but her parents used her as a dependent on their taxes. So
if it was correctly filed as her being their dependent, then she's not eligible for the economic impact payment.
Okay, so that would explain why they did not get their payment, because they were claimed as a dependent on their parents.
That would be correct. That was how the IRS would calculate it. Now, for 2020, she may want to go back and look at, is she correctly being claimed as a dependent? So, and dependency is not kind of like you can give your dependency away. There's a set of tests that a tax practitioner goes through to like determine, yeah, you can be claimed or you can't be claimed. So that's where I would like send the person to a tax preparer, and it's quite possible that she was a dependent in 2019, filed correctly, and won't be in 2020.
Okay, and does the CFPB have a resource for individuals in a situation like that? Because I'm guessing that a lot of folks don't have maybe a regular tax preparer they can go to with questions like that.
I would really encourage people. That's one of the reasons we would really encourage people to seek out someone like a VITA practitioner, just to get assistance with that. Dependency seems like it should be easy, and it gets complicated, particularly around issues where you have an adult, so someone over 18 who may be a dependent. Even when you're dealing with the college students, it is sometimes very confusing based on how much support the college student is providing for themselves. So yeah, I'd always look for someone to just kind of walk through those issues. They get complex quickly, and you really need to look at the details.
And Aaron, generally, this is Dave. Generally, we're not tax experts, and we don't have the resources to provide individual sort of guidance to people in circumstances. Unfortunately, we wish we had that capacity, but as JC said, we always encourage people to find a VITA site, and I know there's a lot of VITA sites represented on this call, and or the organizations are connected to VITA in their community.
Right, and VITA, the quality of prepare at VITA is really high, and particularly on issues like this, it's just right, and they're really strong at getting these correct.
Okay, we have a.
And I just want to stress that I think when folks on the phone hear the term tax preparer, be thinking VITA. And if your CAP agency is not a VITA provider, talk to your state association and find a colleague community action agency in your state who is a VITA provider, and perhaps there can be some linkages made there. But when you hear tax preparer, they don't mean H&R Block. They mean us as VITA programs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have some other questions. Does a customer have to have an email address in order to use the non-filer tool?
Yes, they will need an email address for the non-filer tool, because if there is a problem with the filing, so that there's an e-file that goes with the non-filer tool, and that can be accepted or rejected, you've got to get that notice, and the only way you can get that notice is through email.
Okay. So if we're working with customers who don't have an email address, we want to be sure if we help them create one, that it's one that they'll be able to access in case there is an issue like that.
Right. Now, actually, after the guide was completed, the IRS came out with information about filing a 1040 form as an EIP information form, and that is found on their FAQs. So there is an option, and there's also an option of actually printing the non-filer tool and mailing it, if that's the situation a person's in, they don't have the email.
Okay. And there's a question about what year should people be doing a tax return for, and so I'm guessing, what we're trying to get at here is maybe an individual should have filed their taxes but didn't. So what do they need to do sort of minimally to trigger their payment if they should have filed but didn't?
At this point, they should be filing. Okay, so of course, I would encourage everyone who has a filing requirement or has a benefit from filing to file their tax return. If the person has a debt, like the IRS has the Low Income Tax Clinic program, which is kind of the brother sister of VITA. These are the people that volunteer to help you with like big tax issues. So first of all, they should file for the EIP payment this year, which is a prepayment of a 2020 return of 2020 tax credit. They should go ahead and file in 2019. And also, as you probably know, but maybe not, since the EIP is a prepayment of a 2020 credit, the way you correct any amount you didn't get paid is by filing the 2020 tax return next year.
Okay, so if someone is in the situation where they didn't receive their payment because they should have filed but didn't, they need to get that 2019 filing in as soon as possible, and they need to be aware that they should file again in 2020. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, and I think that is, like, every tax situation is different, and if they've got stuff going on, there is help available in the low-income tax clinics, the taxpayer advocate service. your VITA providers. They're all there to kind of help through this process. And people shouldn't be afraid to get it straightened out with the IRS.
Great. And I want to just emphasize again to our network what Denise said. We have so many community action agencies that do VITA. So if your agency doesn't, reach out to another agency or your state association or us at the partnership, and we'll help make that connection because we have a lot of knowledge in our network to help our customers. Another question that came in. Oh, go ahead.
On that, Aaron, and in case you can't find somebody in your community who does VITA, reach out to your AARP. They also run VITA programs. I know they're for a different, perhaps more, depends on who your customer is at the moment, but they can maybe direct you to another VITA program in your community.
Also in the guide, we do explain how to reach out to your local IRS spec, which is stakeholders, partners, education, and communications. Great name for like the organization that kind of oversees VITA. They should be able to connect you who's doing the work in the area, even if there's not someone operating right now. With the LITCs, it runs through the Taxpayer Advocate Service, so you can connect to somebody who may need to straighten out years of tax debt through them.
Okay. Some additional questions we have. If someone filed by paper because their return was rejected, how long should it take to receive the EIP? Because this question says that a return was mailed back in June, but has not been accepted by the IRS yet.
Okay. So the e-file's not been accepted since June, and the paper filing has not been processed since June, which is, okay, so 6 to 8 weeks is what the IRS says for paper filing under normal circumstances. We know that they're way behind that, but are catching up. So it's hard to tell when that's going to happen. I would keep checking, get my payment, and where's my refund to see if there's any progress on that. So the IRS tools are your best option. But that's what everyone's doing right now.
And Aaron, this is Dave. Can I chime in? I actually have a personal experience where I helped somebody, provided some information to somebody who had actually filed a paper return. And I think they filed in early June, and they literally just texted me yesterday to say they got their payment, 2 days ago. So it was about 3 months between the time that they filed and the time that they received their payment. That's not dispositive of every situation, but it gives you some idea of the window of time.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Another question. Does the non-filer tool ask for someone's 2018 adjusted gross income? Because it looks like there's an option to note that a 2018 return was filed.
It does ask for the AGI. And that is, so within, when you do an e-file, it's all about the e-file process there. You can use your self-select PIN, which someone who did not file in 2018 will not have, which is something you create. Or you can use your AGI. Well, your AGI, if you did not file in 2018, is 0. So basically, if you're going into anything as a non-filer and they're asking about AGI or tax due or whatever, the answer is just 0. And that's what the IRS will have. But that's more of a just a identity theft deterrent, fraud deterrent, just to make sure people know something from the tax return that the IRS knows.
Okay, and there's a comment. I don't know if this is something that you want to add to, but there's a comment from Laura Manship. Hope Laura doesn't mind if I share this, saying we've been doing a simple $1 tax return for folks who don't have email, and it seems to work well. They are a VITA site.
Right.
And so it's likely that other Vita sites do that type of a simple return. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
That is kind of the correct process. The one thing that's different that the IRS added for the paper filing was to write across the top EIP 2020 when you mail that return, before you mail that return in. I would say the IRS processes everything they can, so it should get processed.
Okay, and then another question that actually I have too, because I'm curious about this. You've said that the $1,200 payment is actually an advance for the, I think for the 2020 tax filing as a credit. Can you say a little bit more about, kind of what that means for regular folks? Because it almost sounds like an advance is money that we're ultimately going to have to give back, or maybe money that we thought we were going to get in 2020, but now we're not because we got it early. And I know that's really important for a lot of our customers who rely on that annual refund check.
So the credit, or the economic impact payment, was designed as a prepayment of a tax credit, where it's the tax credit gives the IRS a mechanism to make any corrections if they underpaid the person's eligibility. The other part of the statute says that if the IRS messes up and pays you more than you're due, then you do not owe that money back to the government. So basically, you're going to get the payment now through the early payment, or get it later based on the 2020 credit. And we were talking earlier about the dependent. If the dependency changed for someone from 2019 to 2020, and they're now eligible, they'll be able to get the credit. But they won't expect the parents to pay back what they the $500 they received. So basically, filing for the credit can only benefit you. You're not paying anything back, and the economic impact payment is not taxable.
And one other thing that I would add is that I think the second part of the question was whether it was an advance on a credit you would have received when you filed your 2020 tax return. And the answer is no. It's a special credit. So if you're eligible, for example, to receive the earned income tax credit through 2020 when you file in 2021, you're still going to get that.
Right.
And you're still going to obviously get any over withholding and things like that. So it doesn't affect what you would get when you file your 2020 tax return.
Great. Thank you for that additional clarification, Dave. That was a specific follow-up I was going to ask, because we do have a lot of customers that we help through Vita sites obtain the EITC, and it would obviously be very concerning if this was going to have an impact on that, but it has no impact on their EITC for next year, so that's good to hear. We're not seeing any more questions in the chat, but we'll give folks another minute just in case maybe we missed one that scrolled by. Denise?
I'll ask a question to JC. You've done some of these really deep dive into the weeds sessions. What would be the top 2 or 3 questions that you get that maybe tricks of the trade to help the folks on today's webinar just kind of say, oh, that's a glitch I didn't think of? Or what are some of those top 2 or 3 things that you've heard in more of those detailed webinars? Or 45 or 46 things that you get in
okay. I think the most important way to think about it is the client's going to come to you saying, I didn't get a payment. They're not necessarily going to know why, or they may have a guess and that's wrong. So I think that is the most important thing, is just to try to use the guide, use the Get My Payment tool, and just that gets you pointed in the right direction, and then you can move them in the right direction with a response. I think the other question that we regularly get is, what about address for people who are homeless? We go over some things in the guide, but the best thing a lot of people can do is find someone, sometimes a church, sometimes a shelter, that's willing to take the mail and hang on to it. I say hopefully a year, because I think what we want them to be able to get is any notices that come from the IRS. Because yeah, if they don't get their payment, they're probably going to get a notice, and the notice is going to take them to the next step. So it's really important they have a place they can get information for the IRS and respond to it.
And could a local community action agency
Certainly could
opt in to be that kind of source?
Yeah, I think it's really agreement between you and the client, but you're going to get all their mail if you do that, or anything they send your way.
And a couple other questions have come in, and one definitely resonates with me because in the past year, things have happened so quickly, and there's been so much stress on all of us. It's very likely that people may have gotten checks but don't even remember getting them.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, if we ask a customer if they received their check and either they aren't sure or they think they didn't, will this portal that you've described, the Where's My Check, will that allow the customer to to obtain an answer that yes they did, or
yeah,
they didn't?
Yeah, I think the Get My Payment, if they received a payment already, they should have like the status response payment processed, and hopefully that triggers with the customer that, oh yeah, I did get a check, or I did get a debit card from the federal government. We've had some people on SSA that the money went into their Direct Express card because the IRS got that information shared from Social Security. So, sometimes it may be, well, it says you got it, the guide has some thoughts that might lead you to like the debit card that the Treasury sent out for the EIP isn't labeled as IRS or Treasury. It's labeled by the credit card or the debit card company name. So that confused a lot of people. Where did this come from? And it may be sitting there with in the envelope, not open or something.
Or Aaron, one of the other things we've heard is that some people, because the labeling on it's about 4 million people that receive these debit cards, and because of the nondescript labeling, some people just thought it might have been trash. They didn't realize what it was. And so there is, if they accidentally threw it away or whatever, isn't there a process by which they can contact the IRS?
We did. Well, you contact the debit card company, and we did list the number and instructions, the guide for that. It's also on an IRS FAQ.
Okay, that's the follow-up I was going to ask. Is I have heard stories of people who thought it was a scam and threw it out, and so it's good to know that there's a process that they can try to reclaim that, as long as presumably someone didn't take it out of their trash and claim it. But that's a whole other.
Yeah, well, there is a process for that within the IRS too. It's going to be slow,
okay.
But the IRS is pretty good about eventually getting you what you're due if you stick with it. I know that people give up once in a while because it can be a long, slow process.
And speaking of length of time and responsiveness, there's a question about the EIP assistance line and how responsive that is. Do you have any insight into what sort of wait times or how long it takes people to resolve an issue that they call about?
I really can't tell you. I think it varies a lot from time of day, day to day. Always hear call the IRS early. And so sort of like voting in Chicago, vote early, vote often. So call the IRS early, call often. One of my always suggestions with customer service is the person's not like great, you can always call back and get someone else. So, sometimes the EIP number is not the best number to get it to follow up with, particularly if it's kind of like you're not getting your payment, but it might be related to something else. So then you want to go for the IRS main number, which is 1-800-829-1040. If you can't work it out with either number, there's also the Taxpayer Advocate Service. And my personal experience with the Taxpayer Advocate Service, I've never had a client call me back after calling them for assistance. So, which I've always said, like, call me back if you don't get the help you need. So that, to me, is a pretty good indicator that that works. But, you know, you do customer service first, you do the EIP number, do customer service, then maybe the Taxpayer Advocate Service if you're just struggling to get the information you need or can't figure out why you didn't get a payment.
Okay. And one more question I see in our chat. Can you speak to households that have a blending of members in terms of some individuals may be citizens, some may not be, some may be legal residents, some may not be. How does a blended household of those types, how does that affect the ability to claim payments?
Yes, it can have some quite a few complications. So if you filed married filing jointly and one of the spouses has an I-10, you are not eligible to receive the economic impact payment. However, and this is where, like, yes, go to someone with tax expertise like VITA for filing in 2020, because you want to figure out, well, would it be beneficial next year to file married filing separately, because I can get the credit if I file married filing separately. However, there's a lot of credits you can't get with the married filing separately status. So you're going to need to kind of like look at all the potential issues when you're in that situation. I think also another big question when we're dealing with immigrant communities is recent arrivals and the definition of a permanent resident, which is really easy if they've got a green card, because they are. And the green card's indication they're eligible to work, so they're eligible for the benefit, but or the tax credit, and you know, but it gets complicated. I just really, you know, I would never tell people what to do based on kind of a conversation over the phone with that. I need to just want to see the details as a practitioner. I think it's important to go work with a practitioner on that. You know, I think generally VITA is really good at doing issues around, you know, like presence and how to treat the I-10 preparation correctly.
Okay, thanks. And I don't think we have any more questions, Denise. So.
Well, I so appreciate folks putting the questions out there. Some of them were detailed, some of them were more macro level. This stuff gets into the weeds very, very quickly. And I think, as you heard JC say, we really want to make sure that you're talking to tax preparers in VITA and other programs to try to get some of these questions, specific family issues, answered. I also appreciate Johanna's overview of the toolkit and the guide. Take a look at that. There's a lot of material there that you can just run off, print them, put them in food boxes as people drive through. There's a lot of ways that you can ask the question, even if you're not seeing families face to face. But if you are seeing families face to face, what can we do to add this question to your regular intake process, your regular check-in process? If your crews are going out weatherizing a house or other dwelling, what can you leave behind? When folks come into the WIC clinic, where are the places where you can push the question out? Because they're not going to ask it. So we have to be very proactive in this scenario. So thank you, Johanna, for walking through the toolkit. I think there's just a ton of stuff in there, a lot of things that you can easily print off, throw on your logo, throw on a huggy heart, make it your own. If we can be helpful there, don't hesitate to ask. So JC, Dave, Johanna, are there any other things as you heard today's conversation that you'd want to leave us with?
Yeah, there's one thing that I want to, well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. But one thing is we are offering office hours. JC, do you have is it Wednesdays at what time?
Wednesdays at 2:30 and it's Eastern. And you should get a copy of that when that is, if you participated on the, we're going to share it with Denise.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
Office hours on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Are those Wednesdays with
we'll
JC? Is that what you call them? Wednesdays with JC?
Wednesdays with JC. That's right.
Yeah. It kind of is that. Hopefully, we also really want it to be an exchange of information. So, what people are doing in their community, how they are addressing the challenges of trying to just really, it's quite simple. People know whether they got the payment. And the people who might not have gotten the payment are really a broad spectrum of people. So if we just get that question out there, lots of people asking it and say, I think there's a lot of people that sit there, I didn't get the payment, I must have not been eligible. And that's not right, because if their income's under $99,000 and they're adult, they're probably eligible. So that's kind of getting the word out there. And then you've got some tools to track it down, and we have the calls if you're running into something that's like we didn't think of because, we couldn't run through every scenario to, develop this tool.
And there's windows because there might be moratoriums in place, but those rent debts are stacking up, so that 1,200 will come in handy whenever it's able to hit those households.
Exactly. So we'll be just to confirm, we'll be sending to Denise the information on how to call in for office hours, right? After the
absolutely. So I'm sharing that.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll share that with you, Denise. So maybe if you follow up with participants, that would be that has all the information they need, including a link to the recorded webinar.
Fantastic.
Where we go into all the detail.
Where I get to the nitty gritty of using the tools and
Fantastic. 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, and everybody else in between, probably, and on the other sides of them, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Alaska. Great.
And it is a Teams meeting, but people can also join by phone.
Good. Teams always throws me for a loop. So.
Well, we like Teams because a lot of what I did was actually show where things were on irs.gov.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, where's that FAQ? Which was kind of boring because I was searching irs.gov while I'm doing a meeting, but maybe that. But I think it was helpful. Yeah, I think just to see it is kind of helpful.
Well, we so appreciate all of your great work. We always appreciate the great work of CFPB. ICF, we work with you guys on a lot of different things as well, making sure that our agencies have access to the best information on how to, the best research on serving families with low income. So thank all three of you for being with us here today. Thank you, everyone who stuck with us through this webinar. We'll get all this information out, including Wednesdays with JC and the deep dive recorded webinar and the slide deck, more than you'd want to know. But you got to have the tools if you're going to do the work. So thank you, everybody. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.
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 Hey, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.